Welcome to the Inner Temple. In this space, we explore the journey from ego to true self. The ego is part of us that feels separate, afraid, and in need of control. It builds an identity from past experiences and constantly tries to protect itself from pain. But beneath that, there is something deeper, the true self. It's a quiet awareness that's always been here, calm, connected and whole. The more we recognise the ego's patterns, the more we return to that deeper truth within us. Today we're exploring something subtle but powerful, how the ego protects itself through 15 different tools of defence. These behaviours often operate in the background of our lives, quietly shaping how we see ourselves, others and the world. The ego isn't bad, it's just trying to protect you. When we become aware of its patterns, we begin to wake up. We begin to return to the deeper truth beneath the mask. So as you listen, allow this to be a mirror. Gently notice if any of these resonate. There's no shame in seeing yourself. Awareness is healing. Let's begin. The first is repression. This is when the ego unconsciously blocks painful thoughts or urges from awareness. Imagine someone who was bullied as a child. They may not remember it clearly, but they feel anxious in social groups without knowing why. The pain was buried, deep-seated, but not gone. Have you ever felt an unexplained tension or fear that seemed to come from nowhere? That could be buried truth, gently asking to be seen. Next is suppression. Unlike repression, this one is conscious. You know something is bothering you, but you push it aside so you can just carry on. Maybe after a painful breakup, you throw yourself into work saying, "I'll deal with this later." Sometimes we suppress just to get through the day. Can you think of a time you intentionally distracted yourself from something emotional? Denial is the ego's full refusal to accept a painful truth. Someone who drinks every night might say, "I'm just having fun," even when their health or relationships are falling apart. In denial, the ego creates an alternate reality, one where nothing is wrong. It can feel safer than the truth. Have you ever experienced a time when it was easier to pretend something wasn't happening? Projection is where we see our own shadow in someone else. For example, imagine you're feeling angry deep inside, but instead of recognising it, you accuse a colleague of being angry and hostile towards you. The ego protects itself by turning the inner conflict outward, so you see your own anger reflected in them, even if it's not really there. Think about a time when someone triggered you strongly. Was it possible they were reflecting something you hadn't wanted to see in yourself? Displacement is when we redirect our emotions from one place to another. You're angry at your boss, but come home and snap at your dog. The ego avoids conflict with the real source of pain and releases the energy somewhere safer. Can you think of a time you took out frustration on the wrong person? Reaction formation. Reaction formation flips the truth upside down. If you're feeling insecure, you might act overly confident, even arrogant. The ego does this to hide the real feeling underneath. It's like wearing the opposite mask. Have you ever caught yourself pretending to feel the opposite of what was really going on inside? Isolation of effect. This is when we recall something painful, but the emotion is completely missing. For example, someone might describe a painful experience in a very calm, unemotional way, as if they were just sharing facts rather than their feelings. The ego splits the event from the feelings, allowing us to speak without truly feeling. Think about times you've told a painful story but felt numb inside. What was being protected? Intellectualization is similar. It's when we think about our feelings instead of actually feeling them. You might analyse grief instead of grieving. This is normal, you might say. It's just a phase. The ego keeps everything in the mind, away from the rawness of the heart. Can you recall a moment where you stayed in your head to avoid what was in your heart? Dissociation happens when experience becomes too overwhelming and we mentally check out. In an argument, you might suddenly feel like you're floating outside your body. This is the ego's emergency exit. It creates a gap in consciousness to avoid pain. Have you ever felt like you weren't fully in your body during stress? Regression is the ego's retreat into childhood. Under pressure, we might sulk, pout, or even throw tantrums, behaviours we've outgrown. But the ego seeks safety and familiarity. Have you ever noticed yourself acting younger than your age when emotions run high? Sublimation is one of the ego's more evolved tools. It takes raw emotional energy, like rage or lust, and channels it into something constructive, like music, art, or exercise. You might turn heartbreak into a song, or anger into a painting. This is ego alchemy. Can you think of a time you transformed your pain into creativity? Altruism is another evolved response. When we feel helpless or overwhelmed, we might serve others to find meaning. Someone going through grief might be volunteering or helping those in need. The ego steps aside so compassion can flow. Has your pain ever inspired you to be more kind? Humour lets us express difficult truths through laughter. You might joke about your anxiety, and everyone laughs, but a deeper release is happening. The ego softens in humour. It allows light into the cracks. When was the last time laughter helped you cope with something that you felt too heavy? Anticipation is the ego's way of preparing for future discomfort. Before a difficult conversation, you might rehearse what you'll say or imagine how you'll feel. It's a way to cushion the impact before it arrives. Can you remember a time when mentally preparing helped you handle something emotional more calmly? Rationalisation is the ego's attempt to make chaos sound logical. You miss a friend's birthday and say, they probably didn't care anyway, but deep down you feel guilty. This defence makes our behaviour seem acceptable, even when it isn't. Have you ever noticed yourself explaining something away just to avoid discomfort? As you listen to these patterns, did any feel familiar? Let me know in the comments. There's no need to judge what you see. These are not flaws, they are strategies. Your ego developed them to protect you, often when you were too young to choose another way. But now, you're becoming conscious of them, and that changes everything. These tools may have helped you cope, but they cannot bring true peace. They maintain the ego's illusion, separating you from others, from presence, and most of all, from who you truly are. The true self doesn't need to protect itself. It simply is, whole, aware, and free. In upcoming videos, we'll explore how to begin dissolving these patterns and how to live from the stillness beneath them, the place of peace the ego can't touch. This journey isn't about becoming something new. It's about remembering what you are when the masks fall away. If this helped you understand yourself more deeply, consider subscribing to the Inner Temple. Share this with someone who may be ready to see a little more clearly. May each moment of awareness bring you closer to your true self. Thank you for being here.